Sometimes the people we help for just one night end up changing our lives forever. Have you ever done something kind for a stranger without knowing who they really were or how much that moment would matter later? Most of us like to believe that small acts of kindness don't really change the world, that they're just small things, a quick favor, a temporary gesture. But every once in a while, life quietly proves something different. Sometimes a door you open for someone else becomes the moment that opens a completely unexpected chapter in your own life. This is the story of a man who believed he was simply helping someone through a difficult night. But the truth behind that moment would surprise him in ways he never imagined. The man's name was Daniel Harper. Daniel was 37 years old and lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio. His house was small, modest, and a little worn around the edges, but it was filled with the kind of warmth that only real life creates. Toys scattered across the living room floor, drawings taped unevenly to the refrigerator, a small pair of sneakers sitting beside the door. Daniel was a single father raising his 7-year-old son, Ethan. 2 years earlier, Daniel's wife, Melissa, had passed away after a sudden illness. Her loss had shattered the rhythm of their lives in a way Daniel never fully recovered from. The quiet evenings, the empty side of the bed, the moments when Ethan would ask questions Daniel didn't always know how to answer. But despite everything, Daniel kept moving forward. He worked long shifts as an auto mechanic at a small local repair shop called Franklin Auto Service. It wasn't glamorous work, but Daniel was known as someone who could fix almost anything with an engine. More importantly, he was known as someone people could trust. His coworkers often joked that Daniel had 2 full-time jobs, mechanic during the day, dad during the night. Every morning he woke Ethan up for school, packed his lunch, and walked him to the bus stop. Every evening he helped with homework, cooked simple dinners, and read bedtime stories. His life was quiet, predictable, lonely sometimes, but full of purpose. And then, one rainy Thursday night, something unexpected happened. Daniel had just finished putting Ethan to bed. The boy had fallen asleep halfway through a story about astronauts exploring distant planets, his small hand still clutching the corner of the blanket. Outside, the rain was coming down steadily. Daniel was washing dishes when he heard a knock on the front door. At first, he assumed it was a neighbor. But when he opened the door, he saw a young woman standing on the porch. She looked exhausted. Her dark hair was damp from the rain, her jacket soaked through, and she carried a small backpack over one shoulder. She couldn't have been more than 23 or 24. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she said softly, "I'm really sorry to bother you this late." Daniel instinctively stepped outside under the porch light. "Are you okay?" She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "My car broke down about 2 miles back. I tried calling roadside assistance, but my phone battery died." She looked down the empty street. "I've been walking for almost an hour, trying to find somewhere safe to wait until morning." Daniel felt a familiar conflict in his chest. On one hand, he was cautious. Letting strangers into your home wasn't exactly a smart idea. But on the other hand, she looked genuinely exhausted and vulnerable, and the rain was getting heavier. "Do you have family nearby?" Daniel asked. She shook her head. "No, I'm from out of town." There was a brief pause. Then Daniel sighed quietly and stepped aside. "You can come in for a bit," he said, "at least until the storm slows down." Relief washed across her face instantly. "Thank you, really." Inside, Daniel handed her a dry towel and made her a cup of tea. She sat at the kitchen table, warming her hands around the mug. "My name's Rachel," she said. "Daniel." She smiled politely, but still seemed nervous, like someone who wasn't used to asking for help. They talked quietly while the rain tapped steadily against the windows. Rachel explained she had been driving through the area for work when her car suddenly started smoking on the highway. She managed to pull over safely, but the engine wouldn't maybe start again. Daniel asked a few questions about the symptoms out of habit. By the end of the explanation, He was already nodding. Sounds like the radiator probably cracked, he said. Happens more often than people think. Rachel laughed softly. Well, that would explain the smoke. The conversation was simple, calm, almost ordinary. At one point, Ethan wandered into the kitchen half asleep. "Dad," I heard voices. Daniel gently guided him back toward his room. "This is Rachel," he explained quietly. She had car trouble. Ethan rubbed his eyes and gave a sleepy wave. "Hi." Rachel smiled warmly. "Hi, Ethan." It was a small moment, but something about it felt strangely peaceful. Eventually, Daniel said something he hadn't originally planned. "You can stay here tonight if you want," he offered. The couch pulls out into a bed. Rachel looked stunned. "Oh, I couldn't. It's late, and the roads aren't great in this weather." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Thank you." The night passed quietly. In the morning, Daniel woke early, made pancakes for Ethan, and offered Rachel breakfast. After eating, he grabbed his jacket. "Show me where the car is," he said. They drove to the highway together. Daniel lifted the hood and took one look. "Yup, radiator." Rachel watched as he worked. Within 40 minutes, Daniel had temporarily patched the crack and refilled the coolant. It wasn't a permanent fix, but it would get her to the next town safely. Rachel looked amazed. "How much do I owe you?" Daniel wiped his hands on her rag. "Nothing." She frowned. "You spent hours helping me." Daniel shrugged. Sometimes people just need a little help. Rachel studied him for a moment, as if trying to understand something deeper about him. Then she smiled. "I won't forget this." And with that, she drove away. Life went back to normal. Weeks passed. Then months. Daniel rarely thought about that rainy night again. Until one afternoon, something unusual happened. The owner of Franklin Auto Service called Daniel into the office. "There's someone here asking for you." Daniel walked into the waiting area. And there she was, Rachel. But she looked completely different. Instead of travel-worn clothes and a backpack, she was wearing a tailored coat and carrying a leather briefcase. Behind her stood two people in business suits. Daniel blinked in confusion. "Rachel?" She smiled. "Hi, Daniel." He looked around the room. "What's going on?" Rachel glanced at the shop owner. "I should probably explain." She took a breath. "My full name is Rachel Whitmore." The name meant nothing to Daniel, but the shop owner suddenly looked shocked. Whitmore Industries was one of the largest automotive manufacturing companies in the region. Rachel continued gently. "A few months ago, I was traveling between several of our smaller facilities. That night, my car really did break down." Daniel just stared at her. "I didn't mention who I was because, honestly, I wanted to see how people treated someone who looked like they had nothing." She smiled softly. "You treated me like a human being." The room was completely silent. Rachel gestured toward the shop. "I've been looking for a new regional repair partner for Whitmore Industries." Daniel's boss nearly dropped the clipboard in his hands. Rachel continued, "And after seeing how Daniel works and the kind of person he is, I think I found the right place." The contract that followed changed the entire future of Franklin Auto Service. The shop expanded, new equipment arrived, more mechanics were hired, and Daniel eventually became the head manager of the entire operation. But what mattered most to him wasn't the promotion or the money or even the success. It was something Rachel said to him privately before she left that day. She looked at Ethan playing in the corner of the shop with a toy truck and said quietly, "You didn't help me because of who I was." She paused. "You helped me because of who you are." And sometimes that's the most powerful kind of kindness there is. Because the truth is, we never really know who someone is when they knock on our door. We don't know their story, their struggles, or the role they might play in our lives later. But moments of compassion have a strange way of coming back to us, often when we least expect it. So the next time life gives you a chance to help someone, even if it seems small, even if it feels temporary, remember this story, because sometimes a single night of kindness can quietly change everything. And if stories like this remind you that humanity still has good people in it, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe for more stories that show how powerful, simple compassion can really be.